You're married to my uncle.
Mm-hmm.
I just recently found out
Mm-hmm.
you had a couple of relationships prior to my uncle.
I did.
You
I
did?
did.
Okay. So the first one that I
Mm-hmm.
found out about was the one when you were part of an active crime scene.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
can you tell the people can you just expound a little bit?
Okay. So, the young gent,
Mm-hmm.
I met him when I was, oh gosh, like 16 years old. We dated all through college, the end of my, graduation, and then college. We dated all that time. And so when I was 17, I went to college my freshman year, and the dorms close. And so when the dorms close, you go and you hang out, So we went over to this little park area, and so we were just sitting in the car hanging out. And he had said he was ready to go, but I was like, oh, we'll leave in a couple minutes. So right around that time, a car pulled up, and when that car pulled up, we were like being young, and so we wanted to listen to what they were saying, because it was the little park situation was one way in, one way out. So they were parked on the other side of the bushes, and so we cracked our window. We were trying to listen to what they were saying, thinking, okay, they'll probably be leaving soon. So we were listening, and it sounded like they were arguing about something. And so the guy was like, why are you doing me like this? And the other guy's like, because you did me wrong. And then literally you could hear them like scuffling in the car or wherever they were. And the next thing we heard was, oh God. And so at that point, I looked at my little boyfriend and I was like, I'm ready to go. Ready to go. So we cranked the car up and we were just waiting on them to leave. But after, oh God, the next thing we heard was a gunshot. And so at that moment, you're 17, you're like, I want my mom. Like, you're freaking out. You're like, oh my gosh, I want my mom. I want to go home. Like, who wants to go back to the dorm? I want to go to my mom's house. And so we were just kind of sitting, and he comes around the bushes. And it's dark. There's no street lights. There's no nothing. And we weren't doing anything. Let me just state that. Like, I wasn't, doing anything with them. But we were just hanging out, just sitting in the car by the moonlight, and you see the silhouette of this guy coming around the bushes. And he's pulling on my door. And at that moment, I think I might have learned how to pray. Um, I was like, oh God, he's coming to kill us. And so
So that was your first thought, is he's now coming to kill us.
yeah, I didn't know what the situation was with the guy on the other side of the bushes, but I knew there were two, and now it seemed to be one. And so he's like, I need some help. I need some help. And I'm like, and my boyfriend's like, get away from the car, get away. There's a lot of yelling. And so again, one way in, one way out. And so he's standing on my side of the car and he's pulling on my door at this point. And so there's no road in front of us. And I just look at my boyfriend and I say, drive. And so he starts driving, at which point the guy starts unloading his gun into our car. And so we drive and drive and drive, and we come out on the highway, and we run every red light we could see, hoping that the police would stop us. We literally get to the police station, and that is when the police, they're like, what's going on? What are y'all doing? And, we're like, a guy just tried to, kill us. He was shooting at us and he shot somebody and blah, 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 And, you got kids in the car and he's like, where were y'all? And we told him where we were. And he literally said, oh, yeah. He said, that guy's dead. He said he shot him right here. And it came out of his head. Why he decided to tell this to some kids, I don't know. So fast forward, we, eventually we go back to the dorm. They made us sit outside in our shot up car for hours, which was scary because
The guy knew what the car looked like.
Maybe, I don't know. It's so dark. I don't know. But at the point, you're just like, he knows what it looks like. But at the same time, it was like, your life flashes before your eyes. You're crying. I remember once we finally got to the highway, I looked back to try to see, if the guy's following us. His back windshield of the car was, it wasn't broken all the way. It was just, like that crackling. And so I touched it. I know I was in shock because I was just like, your glass is broken. And when I touched it, it caved in on us. But fast forward, we ended up, I went back to my dorm, and at that point, my mom came, and we were watching the sunrise, and it was all kind of stuff in the papers that we had died. Just so much crazy stuff. And so, like, we were looking at the car, because now the sun is up, and his mom is there, my mom's there, and there were bullets all up and down the back of my seat. And one of them was like this far from the top. So, but you can never say what could have happened, what should have happened, what would have happened. But his car broke down like the week before, so we were actually in his sister's car. And so there was no metal in the back of his seats, but it was in his sister's. So, I believe I'm here for a reason, for sure. For sure. So, yeah.
So,
yeah.
my heart. Okay.
Yeah.
I got a little teary-eyed. Okay. That is obviously a near-death experience.
Very near.
What were some of, like, your emotions following that?
Well, so initially, again, you're a kid, and your imagination just runs wild. So I know there were a couple times when the thought was, well, he didn't get caught. He didn't.
So they didn't catch him?
They didn't catch him. They did not catch him. He left the scene. But it was crazy because, again, you don't know what people are thinking or, who it was, because I just saw a silhouette. I didn't see a face, So the crazy thing about it is, like, at nighttime, I wouldn't go out, like, at night at all for a very, very long time. Being in a place where you're walking and you think somebody's behind you. I dealt with a lot of that because you have night classes, and so you go to class and you're like not wanting to walk back to your dorm if you don't have a car, and then thinking that literally like just not knowing where that person is in the world, and that if they tried to take your life, that they might literally want to still do that.
Because, okay, so you said it was posted in the papers that y'all had passed away, like all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So y'all's names are in the paper.
Mm-hmm. And I was a minor. So my boyfriend was not. My boyfriend at the time was not. But, yeah. So there was some crazy stuff going on for sure.
So they put y'all's names in the paper. Mm-hmm. He knows that y'all didn't pass away because y'all got away. So now he knows your name. So if he wanted to, like, look you up, research you, find you, he could.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the other thing, like, from what I'm told, of course, you're still a kid. You don't know. He turned himself in because he was driving, the gentleman that did pass away, he was driving his wife's car. And there was some other stuff that maybe he turned himself in on or whatever. But again, my mom shielded me from so much that there was just no, there was just no way to know what was going on. Because again, you're a mother, you want to protect your child from everything. So she didn't want any of that involvement. But when subpoenas get involved,
Yeah.
The courts and the laws are the laws.
So that's PTSD for sure. How, at what point do you think you started to kind of heal from that? Like, and what were some of the things that you think helped you to heal?
Well, I don't honestly. It's hard to answer that question because when I saw him again, subpoenas, when I saw him in the courtroom, um, I looked over at him, and the only thing I thought, again, you grow up in church, but you don't really. There was not that real connection for me per se. I was dropped off at church until I, went to church with my grandmother. But literally, it was like a moment where, when I saw him, I just said, "Forgive him, because he knows not what he's done." And still a kid, but that's just the thought I had when I saw him.
Were you still afraid?
Um, Triggers, I think, certain things, because you felt safe, and then it just wasn't a safe place. It was really kind of one of those wrong place at the wrong time kind of thing. You can do everything right, but still there's a wrong place at the wrong time that you're it's just your turn. So there was a while when I was still just scared. I know that there was one day, actually a couple of years ago, not even that long ago, where we were riding in the car, and something about, we were on this back road, and the way the moonlight was shining, I looked at my husband. I said, "I want to go home."
Yeah.
And he's like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I don't know. It's just this feeling, this uneasy feeling." It was, the moon was bright, and the way the sun was shining. And I think there was like a situation where there were a bunch of people that just made me feel uncomfortable. It looked like some kind of rally that wasn't where I should be. And so it just made me really uncomfortable. Like, we didn't know any of the people. We were just riding. But that situation made me be like, okay, I don't want to be out here anymore. So that was 20 years ago. But still, not even quite 20, but yeah, a long time ago. And,
So while you were up there on the stand, did you tell him, like, "Oh, I forgive you," or?
Well, at that point, I think that, again, being a kid, they think that people intimidate you. So they actually rolled some kind of partition to where I couldn't see him. So I just, there wasn't that kind of thought. There was a point when his family, the man that passed away, his family was crying. And I remember asking my mom, I was like, why were they crying? Because it had been a long time, and grief is grief, though. But I just was like, why do you think they were crying? And she was like, "You were reliving his last words." I'm like, wow.
And they didn't get to experience that. They didn't get to hear that.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was quite the experience.
Now, did you ever go to like counseling to deal with any of that, or eventually you just were able to start going out again at night? And
yeah, eventually. It's funny because, like, I'm a date person, but for whatever reason I wasn't paying attention to dates. I think it was like a full year later, like literally 1 year exactly, and me and that same boyfriend, we went to a different park. We were just sitting outside. I don't know if we were just like, let's see if we're scared, but we were outside. And while we were out there, a police officer rolled up to us. And I don't know if he ran the license plate and, figured out who we were. But he was like, tonight is the anniversary of, that guy getting killed and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, of all the nights, and then this is the one thing that you remind us of at this point. But yeah, like, eventually.
well, I think and what a lot of people may not realize, like, your body remembers trauma. Like your muscle memory holds on to trauma. And it's the reason why like you'll spasm like on a certain day at a certain time. Like you may not even be thinking about it, but on the anniversary of whatever a traumatic event was, like you'll feel sad and not even know why you feel sad. You know what I'm saying? Like, or you'll feel afraid, not knowing, oh, this is the exact day 3 years later, until you process that trauma out of your muscle memory.
Right.
So do you still remember the day now? Do you notice it still every year when it comes up, or do you think you've kind of processed through some of that like date trauma specifically?
I think that I have kind of processed it, just because, actually now that we're talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the date. But I'm a person who's like, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And I really, really like lemonade. But I'm good on that now. Like I don't need any more lemonade. But I'm just a person who's like, this is the hand that you've been dealt. Play it as well as you can. Yeah. So I did talk to, a couple of people. My mom was like, you definitely need to go to therapy. You need to go to counseling. I just had a lot of really good mentors and people that I was able to process through a lot of stuff with. I never actually went to a physical setting of, therapy.
That's good. I had to go to therapy. It was just me personally. I had to go to therapy. I remember, and this is just my personal situation, where the relationship that I was in right before my husband, the guy lived off of a specific exit number, and I would know, like, when I would drive, like, oh, that's such and such's exit. And because I had to pass it going back and forth to college, like every weekend.
Right.
And so when I broke up with him because I felt like it was the best thing for me at that time, but it didn't mean that it didn't hurt me. Like I remember having just broken up with him, and we went to see my grandpa in Illinois, and I think my youngest brother was like still a baby, and he's sleeping in the bed with me at my grandpa's house, and I am bawling, like crying my eyeballs out. But I remember I would still have to drive past that exit all the time. And I was on the phone with somebody one day, and this was months later. And when I passed the exit, instead of saying, oh, this is such and such's exit, like they just happened to ask, like, oh, where are you at right now? And I was like, oh, I'm passing exit, blah, 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 blah. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I literally broke down crying. And they're like, why are you crying? And I'm like, because I no longer associate that thing with that person. Like, it felt so freeing in that moment for me, because I was like, now I know that I'm on this healing journey. Now I know that I'm starting to process a lot of this stuff out of my system, because I'm able to form new memories around those things. I remember somebody telling me, like, don't give up all the joy that you have around certain things. As I was going to counseling, like if you like to go eat ice cream with that person, go eat ice cream by yourself. Like, make new memories, or go with your friends, make new memories. If you go on a date, go there, make new memories, so that you have something else to pull from.
Right.
So it's no longer a trigger for you. And so, yeah, I remember bawling, crying. Okay, that's just me. That's just me. So you continue on. Obviously, you don't stay with this boyfriend. Obviously. Don't know if the shooting that near-death experience had anything to do with it or not. No. But you proceed to your next relationship.
Yeah.
Which wasn't a long one.
No.
But give us just a brief synopsis.
A brief synopsis.
Yes.
Ooh. Okay. So that previous relationship was from probably 16 to 21. I think we broke up the year I graduated college. And so Um, you know, I got saved when I was 21.
Okay.
And so that was the pinnacle of the end of that